Manetza.
Here. Okay, are we ready, Eric? Oh, okay. Okay, our item of business on our work session today is an audit presentation. Peter Hafner of Bredevelt Hafner LLC is going to present our audit, and, as well as Amy.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, thank you. Peter Hafner is here from Bredevelt Hafner. They have been our auditors since 2014. Last year we extended their contract, so they're in year one of their 5-year renewal with us. We've been very happy with their work and very proud to have them out. We just wrapped up the audit for the fiscal year ending June 30 of 2019. Had a clean audit report, very excited about that again this year. We did meet with the audit committee last week on Monday and presented the audit as well, had great discussion with them. Doug Vredeveld from the firm was here, answered questions that they had. So I'd like to introduce Peter. He'll go over some highlights of the audit and answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you. Peter?
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. And I'm really here to answer any questions you may have. And I was going to talk about some of the highlights. My partner, Doug Vredeveld, was responsible for your audit engagement this year and just kind of switched the set of eyes to take a look at things differently. I was the review partner on your engagement, so I look at the work papers and I look at the final product, the audit reports. And with that being said, what I first wanted to talk about is this year your audit was conducted in accordance with government auditing standards and generally accepted auditing standards, and your audit is required to be conducted in accordance with government auditing standards in those years where you receive federal financial assistance in excess of $750,000. So typically you will receive a large federal grant, and then you may go a year or two without a large federal grant, or 3 or 4. But in those years when you receive a large federal grant, you're required to have what is referred to as a single audit. That would include an audit of your financial statements, and then we would also issue a report on your system of internal controls over financial reporting, as well as a report on your compliance with federal grant requirements. So this year, during the performance of your audit, all 3 opinions were issued, and I'm going to just summarize our first opinion on the financial statements, and it's on page 1 of the financial statements, and it's at the very bottom, and the opinion's actually 2 pages long, so instead of reading the entire thing, first of all, I like to point out that the financial statements are the responsibility of management. It's our responsibility to express an opinion on those financial statements based on the audit. And the last paragraph on page 1 summarizes our opinion that the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position, results of operations, cash flows where applicable of the governmental activities, the business type activities, the each major fund, the aggregate component units, as well as the aggregate remaining funds in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. And that's a summary of what I would refer to as a clean opinion. That you are following the standards required by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, also required by Michigan Department of Treasury, and so that's the highest opinion you can receive. Our opinion on your system of internal controls over financial reporting is really a look at the process and the controls that you have in place. Are they sufficient for the preparation of these financial statements, which are the responsibility of management? That opinion is presented on page 87. And I'm going to just, instead of reading the 1.5 pages in this case, I wanted to just state that our opinion was that there were no significant deficiencies and no material weaknesses in your system of internal controls over financial reporting, which I would refer to as a clean opinion as well. And the third opinion that we provide is your compliance with federal grant requirements, the grant program that was audited during the performance of your financial statement audit was the CDBG funding, and that opinion is provided on page 89 of the financial report, and that opinion was that you complied in all material respects with the grant requirements, and that's what I would also refer to as a clean opinion. So across the board, 3 opinions that didn't identify issues associated with your accounting, financial reporting, or compliance. That information is provided on page 93 of this report, and it provides a nice summary of an unmodified audit opinion, no significant deficiencies, no material weaknesses in your system of internal controls over financial reporting, and then no issues identified with your compliance with the federal grant requirements. That information, along with the schedule of expenditure of federal awards, which shows how many federal grants and how many grant dollars you received, will be submitted to the federal government. We input this data at the Federal Audit Clearinghouse, and then your staff goes in and reviews and approves submission of that data to the federal agency responsible for keeping an eye on the federal audits that are conducted. So that was very positive. In addition to the 3 opinions, there's a vast amount of information in your financial statements, and I know you talked about this in length during the post-audit review of the draft financial statements with your audit committee. I did want to point out on page 5, there's a nice summary of how did the city end the year, and it is full accrual basis, very summarized. It shows your business type activities, your governmental activities, and in the case of your governmental activities, your net position or bottom line increased, as well as did your investment in capital assets net of debt. So you are investing in capital faster than it is being depreciated, and you are paying it down faster than it's being depreciated. And in the case of your business type activities, which would primarily be the electric utility, water, and sewer, the same results occurred in the current year. Your net position, bottom line, improved. Your net investment in capital assets, so the extent that you have pipes in the ground, facilities, et cetera, increased over the prior year, which is positive. The infrastructure has been invested in excess of it being depreciated. So every year you have this depreciation trying to force down the value of your infrastructure, fire trucks, buildings, equipment, pipes, and you are investing in that for the future. In addition, if you take a look at your general fund revenues in excess of your expenditures and transfers, this year you added to your general fund balance about slightly more than $200,000. So for the most part, if you take a look at your governmental funds, all of the governmental funds had increases in fund balance, except for the non-major funds. There are some where you would do some projects, save up dollars, do some projects, so it depends on which year you're doing the road projects or other projects of your governmental activities. Are there any questions I could answer regarding the financial statements? I know that's really summarized, but, and I'd be happy to go into detail, but I understand that several of you are on the audit committee, so you've already kind of walked through this and looked at the various items that were of importance.
Mike, you're on the audit committee. You have any comment?
No, I'm glad to see that we have a very clean audit. Everything came back very good, and also working with staff, and you both worked together very well. That was my understanding, so as long as you both hit it off and do very well and collect it out, I have not much more to say about it. It's just everything went really good. As you heard Peter say, it's a good report for us. We're in very good standards. We have a great staff that keeps us going where we're at, so that's one thing you got to think about, is our financial department is actually keeping us in line.
I like the smile. Other questions? Brian?
No, just kudos to staff for a good, clean audit. I think you said it in the highest opinion, so that was it's really good to hear the grants piece is in full compliance, especially with as many grants that we go out and compete on. I mean, we're always trying to figure out ways to get some grant dollars and leverage our money here. It's good to hear that we're doing really well with maintaining compliance with those. So, but no, good, glad to hear it.
Good, Danny?
I just want to thank the staff, just echo that and say he did a great job for us, and it happens just about every year that we're always in compliance and that we have a nice fund balance. So again, we do that again. So congratulations for the staff that how they manage their money.
And I appreciate too that the clean audit, the good work of our finance department. I do have a question, whether it's for you or for Amy or for Pat. Going into our budget adjustments for back in June, we'd assumed we would have a basically a net loss on our general fund balance. And I see here that we have actually increased our general fund balance. What's the difference? What happened there?
You know, off the top of my head, I'll have to check into that. I was very happy when we got our preliminary results that it was going to look like a $200,000 plus surplus. I think we were just, as usual, extra conservative when we came through with our budget amendments, preparing for the worst and expecting to do better, which we did. But we were, I'll have to check on that.
Well, the issue we'd had this past spring was the shortfall of money in our revenue sharing from the state. And that was a big hole in our budget, and we'd anticipated seeing that in our general fund, and we basically budgeted to draw down general fund if needed to maintain services to get us through for the short term. And I see now that that actually worked to our positive.
I do believe our payment for personal property taxes, the essential services check that we get, I believe we got an extra $300,000 that we did not anticipate. They do a final disbursement late in the year, so I think that may have explained that, but I'll double check on that and let you know.
Well, it's good news anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, on page 53 of your audit, there's a budget and actual presentation for your general fund, and you can see where you had dropped your property tax estimated revenue or amended budget, and it came in better than that. Also, I can see here that from the interest perspective, you had budgeted at about, I think, $200,000, then raised that budget, and you actually came in at $325,000. So slightly better revenues than expected. And then when you take a look at the expenditure categories, you can see almost across the board that all of them came in under budget.
So very good fiscal management by staff.
I agree with what Peter said.
You agree with that too?
100%.
And there's more detail, of course, you'll receive that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Pat, do you have anything else you want to add?
No, sir.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for the clean audit, and glad everything is working so well, and kudos to our staff.
Thank you.
All right, well, that was our only item on our special work session agenda, and we have about 11 minutes before we start our regular meeting. Pat, would you like to cover anything in your or your city manager comments?
Yes, sir, if I may be able to do that, I'm looking for some volunteers for various opportunities, let's say, coming up. I want to open that up so I don't miss any of them. I know that I do need 2 people for the parking committee, and I don't know if there were ready volunteers for that. That's we had Jerry McCaleb and Josh Bruger serving on that committee. They've had a good deal of progress on that, but we're wanting to wrap things up in the next couple months and bring back a recommendation to City Council. And if a couple elected officials wanted to get up to speed on that, I'm hopeful that we might have 2. Wow, that's let's
Jumping. I'll do it.
Okay, Ryan and Mike.
Yeah, I'm willing to as well.
Okay, I'll get you guys the notes so far
Okay.
and take some time to chat with each of you and try to get you up to speed. Our next meeting is this Friday. Congratulations, 7:30 a.m.
All right. I'm usually up at 6:30, so that's fine.
And that one, we keep a hard stop on that too, because everybody have places to be, so we'll be getting out of here before 9 o'clock. The next one is we're going to be hiring a new human resource manager, and I would like a representative, at least one from City Council, to sit on that panel.
I can do that if you wish,
Okay.
unless somebody else would like to.
Right.
I usually get on them, but I'll let you go. It's fine.
All right.
And then finally, bell ringing. We're looking at doing Thursday, December 12th, from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. in front of Fortino's. I believe Denny's already got 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock?
1 to 2, yeah,
1 to 2.
1 to 2.
And then Mike and Bob are going to be 5 to 6.
Yep.
What day is that?
The 12th of December.
And that's a Thursday?
Thursday.
Yes.
I'll check and see if I can do like noon to 1 or something. I'll let you know.
Okay. Tomorrow I'll open it up to the staff, and then if staff signs up, you can just jump on if you're able to at any time, and it's very casual. You can stop by for 15 minutes, and really any of you that want to just stop by and chat with the staff, I know they enjoy that, and we stand right there in front of Fortino's. And I believe those are all the volunteers I was looking for tonight, Your Honor.
Okay.
And I don't know if you wanted to take up just a quick discussion. Maybe I could present about the Kiwanis Santa House, if I might. I don't know if...
Well, I guess that I'd rather save actual agenda items for
Okay.
the meeting.
Okay.
I guess we could talk really briefly about, as we all know, we are taking applications for the vacant council seat, and we are still taking applications at this time. We anticipate having beginning interviews next Monday. We'll be setting up times and contacting applicants and arranging for people to come in for interviews. And so I believe at this point in time we have 4 applicants, and we're still accepting applications. So we will be, will that be you, Linda, or me calling? I guess I could call, but we'll have to start setting up times beginning Monday for interviews for the vacant council seat.
Correct. And what I was thinking was that if, just check tonight to see if people were available at 4 o'clock, or if that's too early for any of you.
For
Is that too early?
this group?
Early, yeah.
What
Yeah.
time works for you, Ryan? I haven't had a chance to,
I mean, anytime after 5 is gonna work best, but I have some
like
flexibility.
5:30 gives
so-
you enough time to
Yep.
get down here?
Yep.
So maybe Monday starting at 5:30?
Okay.
And then as, we're wanting to give people a little more time yet, I think, to get their applications in if they're interested, perhaps through this Friday, at which point we will reach out to those candidates that City Council wishes to interview and let them know. I'll ask Linda to maybe schedule those between 5:30 and whatever time we have, about a half hour each. And then any that the City Council decides they don't wish to interview, Bob's sitting in the middle, so I think he might be the right guy to
I get to make that phone call.
make that phone call. So what we'd expect would be that, I imagine the mayor would be the appropriate one to let Linda know who we are going to interview, say, by Friday morning, so we
Right.
can contact those people and let them know to come in Monday night.
Okay, and then if we get a big rush of applicants, we may have to have more interviews on Tuesday or another time. The goal here is to have an appointment made by our December 2nd meeting. We don't want to wait till our December 11th non-meeting, which we don't have a meeting that night, but that is our deadline for having someone appointed. We had 30 days from the election. Well, actually 30 days from the change of officers, which was last Monday. So that's kind of the plan at this point. We'll be talking to applicants to arrange interview times, and it will start next Monday. So if you're interested, get your application in this week.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask? As far as formats of the interviews and questions, is that something that is going to be drafted ahead of time, or we're going to give some input on what kind of questions we'd like to ask, or?
If you'd like to get any recommended questions to me, I'll set up a script so that you're asking the same questions. The other thing that'd be important is that we use the same group of
Yep.
questions, probably for all the candidates. So by all means, let me know if there's specific questions you'd like to have included.
Or if you'd like to have your questions that you wish to ask. Let's make sure we're not all asking the same questions, and that every interviewee needs to get the same questions in the same manner. So I guess.
Yeah, if one of you guys have a particular way you want to frame the question, I can just put your name in parentheses next to the question. Typically, we kind of do a round robin thing where each person takes a turn and asks a question. So if you've got a particular area you'd like to cover, you let me know and I'll get it on. And so everybody's got a little packet, and each resume, application, cover letter would be then followed by a blank form with rooms for you to write notes after each question. And we get that set up for you in a little 3-ring binder before the interview, so you're ready to go.
Okay. Any other questions on that? Well, I'm going to adjourn the work session, and we will reconvene at 7:30 for our regular meeting. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this regular session of the Grand Haven City Council for November 18th, 2019. Linda, would you please call the roll?
Cummins?
Here.
Scott?
Here.
Fritz?
Here.
Manetza?
Here. We'll have our invocation by Pastor Tim Taylor, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Thank you guys for letting us, the pastors of this community, pray. It truly is an honor to be a part of such a great city. Let me pray. Father, we do thank you for this town that we call home. We thank you for the leaders that you have appointed to continue to make decisions, to guide and direct our community. God, we pray that you grant them wisdom, that you encourage them, you support them. God, I pray that as a whole, this community can be a place that will encourage us all to be the best that we can be, to bring you glory. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next on our agenda are a series of appointments.
This is to appoint Bob Manetza to the EDC Brownfield Redevelopment Authority with a term ending June 30th, 2020. David Skelly to the Planning Commission with a term ending June 30th, 2020. Kevin McLaughlin to the Planning Commission with a term ending June 30th, 2021. And Jerry McCaleb to the NORA Board with a term ending December 31st, 2022.
Okay, is there a motion for these?
I'll make that motion.
Support.
Moved and seconded to make these appointments. Any questions on the motion? Please call the roll.
Fritz?
Yes.
Cummins?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Manetza?
Yes. So we need to do oaths of office?
Yep. Let's see. You said Jerry's not here. We'll do you first, Bob.
All right.
Top of the list. I, Bob Manetza, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this state, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of the EDC Brownfield Redevelopment Authority in and for the city of Grand Haven, county of Ottawa, and state of Michigan, according to the best of my ability.
I do.
You can shake your own hand, like you normally do. I'm going to sign this too, please. Is Dave Skelly here? Yes. Okay. Next. I, David Skelly, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this state, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the Office of the Planning Commission in and for the city of Grand Haven, county of Ottawa, and state of Michigan, according to the best of my ability.
I do.
Oops, sign right there.
Thank you.
And Kevin? I think you know the drill now.
I do.
I, Kevin McLaughlin, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this state, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the Office of the Planning Commission in and for the city of Grand Haven, county of Ottawa, and state of Michigan, according to the best of my ability.
I do. And we'll catch up with Jerry at another time. Okay. All right, next on our agenda will be approval and consent of regular agendas. Are there any changes?
I have no changes yet, Your Honor. I didn't know if we were going to do number 7 next, or...
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, we do. We have 2 presentations for I guess that was in the consent agenda, which so is, we would do that now.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, bear with me, folks. So presentations, we have a couple of presentations to make. We have a presentation honoring former council member Josh Bruger for his years of service. Would you like to meet me at the podium or read this? Councilmember Josh Bruger, resolution of recognition. Whereas Josh Bruger served on the Grand Haven Zoning Board of Appeals from October 16, 2006 until January 16, 2012, the Planning Commission from January 16, 2012 until November 9, 2015, and was sworn in as a council member on November 9, 2015, and served through November 11, 2019. And whereas as a planning commissioner, Josh always researched issues before the commission, asked probing, thoughtful questions, and most importantly, listened to others before making a decision. And whereas as an elected official, Councilmember Bruger advocated for housing options, wildlife management, funding for the Great Lakes restoration, fair application of zoning and building standards, civility, positive investment in public and private spaces in Grand Haven. And whereas Councilmember Bruger promoted creation of Grand Haven's affordable housing plan, provided outreach and engaged students in the Grand Haven area public schools, helped lead infrastructure planning and advocacy, leading to the Forever Grand Haven millage approval in 2019, and helped finance the construction of and helped advance the construction of the Lynn Sherwood Waterfront Stadium and renovation of the iconic Grand Haven South Pier Catwalk. And whereas Josh drew upon his past experience as a child, student in Grand Haven area public schools, husband and father to form his opinions and his decisions regarding the plan as a planning commissioner and member of the city council. Now therefore be it resolved that the mayor and the city council of the city of Grand Haven hereby thank and congratulate Josh Bruger for successful and dedicated service to the citizens of the city of Grand Haven. Thank you.
Thanks, Josh.
Got it. All right. Thanks, Bob. Oh, good. I'm good. Thank you. Thank you.
We also have a resolution for Mayor Jerry McCaleb, and Mayor Jerry McCaleb couldn't be here this evening. So I'll read this for the record, and we'll present it to her when we can get her in here. So, City of Grand Haven resolution of recognition of Mayor Jerry McCaleb. Whereas Jerry McCaleb was elected to the Grand Haven City Council on November 6, 2001, and served 2 consecutive terms through November 9, 2009. And whereas Ms. McCaleb was sworn in as mayor of the city of Grand Haven on November 14, 2011, and served 4 consecutive terms through November 11, 2019. And whereas during her tenure as an elected official in the city of Grand Haven, Mayor McCaleb committed to a positive, strategic, and long-range approach to restoring the infrastructure of the city following decades of disinvestment. And whereas her commitment and fortitude paid off, with over $60 million invested into Grand Haven's infrastructure between 2001 and 2019. And whereas Mayor McCaleb was the chief photographer for the city calendar during her term, applying her creative talents to capture a city in full bloom and conveying a sense of pride, beauty, whimsy, and strength through her camera lens. And whereas the city's arsenal of artifacts underwent extensive renovation under Jerry's leadership, with notable reinvestment in the stadium, pier, lighthouses, musical fountain, and catwalk. And whereas Jerry never missed a bridge walk, a ball drop, a picnic, cardboard sled or boat race, ship parade, Memorial Day ceremony, or a change of command while she represented her hometown. And whereas Mayor Jerry McCaleb is exemplary as a colleague, worker, leader, advocate, friend, and citizen. Now therefore be it resolved that the mayor and the city council of the city of Grand Haven hereby thank and congratulate Jerry McCaleb for his 16 years of selfless service on behalf of the people of Grand Haven. All right. approval of the consent and regular agendas. Are there any changes?
I have none, Your Honor.
Any from up here?
Nope.
Okay, need a motion to approve consent and regular agendas?
So moved. And I'll second it.
Please call the roll.
Cummins,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Fritz,
Yes.
Manetza.
Yes. All right, at this point, we'll have a general business call to the audience. In the call to the audience, this is one of two opportunities for addressing council. At this time, members of the audience may address council on any item, whether it's on the agenda or not. Those addressing council will come to the podium, speak directly to the mayor, must identify themselves by name and address, will be limited to 3 minutes speaking time. Council will hear all comments for future consideration, but will not have a response at this time. Who's first?
My name is Tom Garzaloni. I'm a resident of the city of Grand Haven, and I come before you as you know, the Grand Haven paper always puts out a look back in the paper, and it's kind of ironic that on Friday they put a look back on the nativity scene being set up on Dewey Hill, and the cross is there, of course. And that's what I want to talk to you about tonight for just a moment. If you please, I would like to bring you some decisions made by the courts, and I have copies I would give to the council. The first, they are very short. The first one is display of public nativity scenes legal. Displaying a nativity scene on public owned properties, including state capitals, is legal in all 50 states. This year, for instance, the Springfield Nativity Scene Committee is sponsoring a nativity scene displayed in the Illinois State Capitol building in Springfield, Illinois for the 3rd year running. The Thomas More Society has been working to help the people exercise their legal rights. The second one I want to talk to you about is a cross. Ruling against the Freedom from Religion Foundation, the third U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals has declared that the Latin cross on official seal on the Lehigh County, Pennsylvania, may remain on the seal and on the government property. The court's ruling in FFRF versus the County of Lehigh clarified that because the seal falls under the category of religious references of imagery in public monuments, symbols, mottos, displays, and ceremonies, its placement does not violate the Establishment Clause, but rather such long-standing symbols benefit from a strong, presumptuous constitutionality. And the third one I want to bring to you is the Peace Cross. This cross on September 2019, this is the decision of the United States Supreme Court. The Supreme Court ruled June 20th that the Blandenburg, Maryland Peace Cross, a 40-foot cross honoring the men who died during World War I, may remain standing. The cross was erected in 1925, paid for by the American Legion, local families, and businesses. The High Court ruling strikes down 2 lower court decisions that had ruled the cross violates the First Amendment Establishment Clause, as charged by the American Humanist Association, and they have claimed that it discriminated against soldiers who were not Christians. And then there's one other little one that I would like to bring before you, another decision made by the Supreme Court. My legs are still holding me up, so I'm in good shape. This one, Permoli versus the municipality. The Supreme Court rules that the Constitution leaves the protection of religious liberties exclusively to the states and imposes no inhibitions on state conduct respecting religion. This was a decision made by the Supreme Court in 1845. Now, we have one man came to this city a couple of years ago and intimidated myself and all of the citizens of this city. And he put a fear into some people's hearts. But here I have brought you the rules and the regulations of the Supreme Courts and the decisions that it is legal to have this cross put back up on Dewey Hill and a nativity scene put back on Dewey Hill or on Washington Street. The nativity scene is stored at the Tri-Cities Historical Association. The parts of the original nativity scene were given to the Catholic Church, and they were told they could not display it. So I've tried to locate where all of this stuff is.
Tom, can you wrap it
Now,
up here?
May I finish? Thank you.
Very quickly.
If somebody comes and complains, I'm asking for this tradition to be reinstated in this community. We were known as a Christian community. If somebody comes to try to litigate against the city, the first, I have it written on here, the First Liberty Institute of San Antonio, Texas, run by Kelly Shackelford, whom I heard speak, is in all 50 states. It's the largest law firm in the country, and this is what they do. They will come to the city, and at no cost to the city or the citizens, and they will take it to the Supreme Court if necessary.
Thank you,
I am
Tom.
asking the reinstitution of the cross and the nativity scene. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jeremy Swiftney with Grand Haven Main Street. I just wanted to take a second to invite all of City Council and the millions of people watching, listening on the radio, down to our Light Night, our annual holiday shopping extravaganza on Friday nights from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. I'll be down 2nd Street in Washington handing out 500 free hot cocos, 500 free reusable shopping bags. So be sure to come on down. Everybody should have a great time. The museum's going to have some cider, some popcorn. We're going to have live carolers. We're going to have live music. And we're going to have some amazing shopping deals. So please come on down and check it out.
All right, thank you.
Good evening, City Council. I'm Lillian Olson. This is my partner, Jared Hassey. We are the owners and operators of Grand Haven Paddle Pub. We're here tonight to give you a quick report on our operations that we had this season and also appeal to you, City Council, to consider extending our temporary contract into a long-term contract as we head into this bid. Beginning 2020, Grand Haven Paddle Pub will rebrand as Grand Haven Cycle Boats. Our 2019 season was July 18th to September 21st. That was 66 days, and that was only 10 weekends. During that short amount of time, we ran a total of 46 trips, not including any of our giveaways or donation trips. We serviced a total of 598 people, ages 7 years old to 70 plus. Those were 11 family get-togethers and reunions, 9 birthday parties, young and old, 7 bachelorette bachelor parties, 9 corporate events, team building and retirement parties, 10 various groups of friends, local and tourists. We donated trips to the American Cancer Society of Grand Rapids, the Kids Food Basket of Spring Lake, the United States Coast Guard of Grand Haven and Detroit, and Grand Haven local business owners and public figures. The majority of our late night trips were booked specifically for viewing the musical fountain and waterfront stadium events. Both families and friends enjoyed a different way to be a part of the entertainment happenings on the waterfront. A very large portion of our customers were actually boaters themselves, very appreciative to have an alternative option to enjoy the Grand River without having to be responsible for the boats and for its passengers. The majority of our passengers purchased ice from the municipal marina and snacks from the shops on the boardwalk to enjoy aboard our vessel. Our friends at Dairy Cream were a great neighbor to have, as most of our staff and customers took part in their offerings. Other than the two of us, our employees were our amazing fishing charter neighbors along Chinook Pier. We loved collaborating with the fishing charter captains to promote not only our business on their boats, but as well as their business on our vessel. We found our businesses to complement each other perfectly for a customer to be able to enjoy the water in 2 unique ways while visiting Grand Haven. While this year we did not have the resources for a marketing budget, we were very fortunate to partner with our friends at Grand Armory Brewing, where they advertised us to their associates and customers. For next year, we are expecting to run 125 to 150 trips, with a full season debuting May and going into October. We plan to donate to the local radio stations and even more local nonprofits, and continue to donate and discount trips for active military personnel and veterans, a cause that is very close to our hearts. Thank you, City Council of Grand Haven, for giving us the opportunity this season to jumpstart this passion project of ours with a space along your beautiful waterfront. We are very proud of what we accomplished in this short season, and we're looking forward to the future in this community we have become a part of.
Perfect.
Wow.
Thank you.
You must have practiced that one. Thank you. Yeah, why don't you give them to the city clerk, and she can distribute them. Okay, who's next? Seeing no one else, we'll move on to our consent agenda.
To approve the special work session and regular council meeting minutes of November 4th and organizational meeting minutes of November 11th, 2019. Approve the bills memo in the amount of $460,449.02. Approve a resolution honoring former Mayor Jerry McCaleb. Approve a resolution honoring former Councilmember Josh Bruger. Approve a memorandum of understanding with Neighborhood Housing Services and the Federation of Appalachian Housing Enterprises, an intermediary for rural development loan packaging, to improve public access to available federal housing assistance programs, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the necessary documents. Approve the submission of an application for an NEP grant in the amount of $30,000 by the Office of Neighborhood Housing Services to make state funds available for local housing improvement projects. Approve a contract with Wolverine Fireworks for the 2020 New Year's Eve fireworks show in the amount of $2,000, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the necessary documents. And approve a contract with Wolverine Fireworks for the 2020 4th of July fireworks show in the amount of $23,000 with a rain date of July 5th, 2020, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the necessary documents.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion. Go ahead, Denny.
Motion by
I'll second it then.
Scott, second by Fritz. Questions on items on the consent agenda?
Just a question on H. I haven't been around for past fireworks approvals. For the July 4th fireworks, how does the pricing compare? Is it pretty much comparable to prior years, or?
Yes.
They've held that steady for a number of years now. Return customer, and we haven't seen any increases, I don't think, since Ashley's been here. Probably for 4 or 5 years we've been running the same amount, and it remains a consistently good show with no complaints.
We can thank Boom Boom for setting us up with him. Roger does a nice job, or he did. He's retired now.
Yeah, I think he's retiring from
He
this.
retired now from it, but he's the one that's hooked us up with him, and it's been very good with us.
Other questions? I have a question on item E, which is the neighborhood housing administering, or it being a loan packager for these rural development loans. Could Rhonda come up and speak to that? Unless, Pat, would you care to address it?
I would like Rhonda to step up.
Okay, well, she's almost here.
Good evening, I'm Rhonda Klein from Neighborhood Housing Services.
Hi. So, is this intended to provide a service to the Grand Haven city residents or to people from our area, from their neighboring municipalities?
It would include people that we serve in anywhere in Ottawa or Muskegon County. It is, Lynn Bokema, our housing counselor, went to a training a little bit earlier this year. Rural development lost a lot of funding in recent years, and what they're looking for is people to replace their staff, people who can help clients process the loan application. So we would start with the client, we would help them prepare all their paperwork, and then we would submit it. We have to submit it to the Federation of Appalachian Housing, FAHE. We have to submit it through them. Until we've processed a certain amount of loan packets, we have to use an intermediary. So that's what rural development requires. So that's why the MOU with the FAHE, that's the intermediary for Michigan. So then we would submit them to them, and then they would submit them to rural development. So that's all we're really doing, is just we're earning some revenue by helping people apply for a rural development mortgage.
So we're basically doing this as a contractor, as a service provider. I guess my
Yes.
question was, we're not necessarily doing this for Grand Haven residents, possibly for neighboring municipalities, but primarily we're doing it so that we can earn money packaging loans.
Yes,
Do we have the time and the capacity to put that into it?
yes, we do.
Okay. I'm not opposed to earning some extra revenue.
I'm
I
not
just don't
either.
like to see us take staff and put extra duties on them if we don't have the capacity to properly do all our other duties and this extra.
Exactly, and it would primarily be Lynn Bokema, our housing counselor, and she definitely has the time in her schedule to add something extra, so,
Okay, very good. Thank you.
thanks.
Any other questions? Call the roll?
Scott,
Yes.
Fritz,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
Manetza.
Yes. Okay, new business. First item of new business, consideration by City Council of a resolution to approve an amendment to the 2019 agreement with the City of Grand Haven and the Service Employees International Union Local 517M.
If you'd like, I'll just point out that the union has ratified this agreement, and tonight, City Council is being asked to ratify the same agreement. It would be a 3-year agreement beginning July 1, 2020.
Okay,
2-year agreement beginning July 1st, 2020.
all right, we'll need a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Support.
Motion by Fritz, second by Scott. Okay, based on that premise, and this was the subject of our executive session to go over the elements of the contract. Questions by council?
No questions.
Anything else that Pat cares to present?
I don't have any questions, but just, I mean, I guess, just to note, you know, I think the contract seemed to really balance out addressing our pension costs, the shared percentages that our employees are facing as far as their costs and what they're putting into, you know, towards their pension. You know, a fair contract for them as union employees, but then maintaining our fiscal responsibility piece. I'm glad to see that the average wages were looked at. There's going to be some increases there, and I'm glad to hear the employees union overwhelmingly ratified this. So, it's good.
And this is quite the accomplishment for our soon-to-retire Bonnie Suchecki, who I believe is still in the audience. Yep, back there. Well negotiated, very fair terms, well received by our employees as well as by administration and council. And it was intended to be done before her last day, and it looks like we're going to make it. So anyway, good agreement for the future, sets us up well, and we should be fair to our employees and for well-being of the city going forward. Any other comments? Okay, call the roll.
Fritz,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Manetza.
Yes. Next item. Do you want me to read these, or do you want to read them?
However you want.
I mean, I guess
Seeing
that,
seeing your voice is the way it is.
yeah. I mean, I just
Easier if we do it for you this
kind of
time
fell
around.
back on my old planning commission days when I would just read the items and,
Usually the clerk does.
You can read them if you want to. My voice will probably appreciate
all
it.
right, I'll just read what's in our printed agenda.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, next item is consideration by City Council of a resolution to receive and place on file the annual financial reports for June 30th, 2019 as presented by Redevelopment Hafner LLC.
So moved.
Support.
Okay, motion by Scott, support by Fritz. We just had a presentation during our work session. Any questions?
No, just want to say that we had a clean audit and everything was good, so as I said before, thank you to staff for keeping us financially sound.
Yes.
Keeping us on the right path.
It's all good news. There's no further discussion. Please call the roll.
Cummins,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Fritz,
Yes.
Manetza.
Yes. Next item, consideration by City Council for a resolution to approve the Kiwanis Santa House placement in the depot from December 9 through 20 to waive $1,300 in fees, which includes a $100 application fee, $100 banner placement, and $1,100 in rent, provided the Kiwanis supplies volunteers for all setup and cleanup activities. I need a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Support it.
Okay, motion by Fritz, supported by Cummins. Anyone here from Kiwanis want to talk?
Just the president of Kiwanis is in the house.
Aha. Please come forward. Identify yourself.
Good evening, Sandy Cap, President of Kiwanis. I'm here to thank you for allowing us to use the depot this year. We're looking forward to it. We've got a lot of fun, exciting things planned for these 1,700 people that walked through it last year, and we're looking forward to a lot of new things this year over there, all in the warmth of the building. So we're very appreciative of it. Any questions for us?
And you feel the depot is better repair than the Santa House?
Exactly. Every time the wind blew, either the roof kind of blew off or the lights flew down, and so we're looking forward to it, standing on solid, warm ground versus freezing cold outside.
It was cold in that building at times. I was in there a few times.
It was cold outside too while we
Well, it
waited.
was really cold outside, but it was not even much different.
It was. I don't think Santa Claus is gonna know what to do with himself.
I'm in favor of this. I think it's a good idea. At least we're using the depot, and it's gonna be a well-use for the public. And I can't see anything better than that, so it's gonna be great.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm in support as well. Seems like a nice new warm location. Yeah, I'm okay with the $1,300 fee waiver. I think if we look at this, this group is providing their volunteer and their time into putting this together, and really for $1,300 value and a reoccurring event throughout December for families is a pretty good value, I think. So I'm in support as well.
As I am.
Thank you.
And as I am as well, I'd like to see the depot used as much as we can with the state it's in and the ability to do something in there for the public. We did trick-or-treating in there, that worked out well, and now we're going to do this, and I'm sure there's other things we can use the building for while we're waiting for final disposition or final determination of how it'll be used and how it'll be renovated, but in the meantime, it's a great activity.
And I think with all the foot traffic you'll see during that period of time, it'll bring a lot more ideas to people
And that's
and ways to use it.
very true, because quite often what we hear is the depot is always dark, the depot is always empty, the depot has nothing going on, and yet we can make things go on, so it will be very stimulating. So thank you for that. Any other comments, questions?
No, it's all done.
Call the roll.
Scott?
Yes.
Fritz?
Yes.
Cummins?
Yes.
Manetza?
Yes. Next item. Consideration by City Council of a resolution to approve the purchase of 2 3/4-ton trucks with plows and 3 1-ton dump trucks in the not-to-exceed price of $141,271.71 from Preferred Ford of Grand Haven, Michigan, $28,464 from Monroe Truck of Owasso, Michigan, and $12,932 from Monroe Truck and Auto Accessories of Muskegon, Michigan. Need a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Cummins, support by Scott. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Matt Wade, Streets and Utilities Manager at DPW. Here tonight requesting approval to replace 5 vehicles at DPW, 2 3/4-ton trucks with plows and 3 1-ton dump trucks. The trucks have all been reviewed and comply with our replacement program. Some are well over 100,000 miles, and all 5 of these trucks are 18 years old. So they're in significant need of being replaced. The 3 different prices you see up there are Preferred Ford of Monroe Truck of Owasso is going to be building the dump boxes for the 3 dump trucks. And Monroe Truck out of Muskegon will be supplying the plows for the 3/4 tons. And Preferred will be supplying the chassis and trucks for all.
And how did we do on our budget?
We are slightly over budget by $1,600, and we've been I believe we were $10,000 under budget on some of our past purchases, so we should be,
We're still okay.
yep.
So you're getting rid of those green dump trucks, right?
Yes, this is the last of our green trucks.
Yeah.
Kenny's got memories.
I purchased those. We couldn't get yellow, we couldn't get the yellow, it was gonna cost us more money, so we just went green, so. But I think we only did that 1 year, and I think we had like 5 or 6 trucks, but.
The 5, we're replacing 5.
No, I think we already replaced some of them, but yeah. But this is gonna end the green trucks for us, huh?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, all right.
So you're gonna be bidding on these, Denny?
What's that?
Are you gonna bid on these? You're gonna want?
No.
Yeah, sentimental attachment here.
No.
Any other questions?
No, thanks, Matt.
Yeah, thanks, Matt.
Yep.
If there are no other questions, we're ready to vote.
Fritz?
Yes.
Cummins?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Manetza?
Yes. Next item. Consideration by City Council of a resolution to adopt the revised Lake Forest Cemetery rules and regulations as proposed and supported by the Cemetery Board. Anyone from the Cemetery Board would like to speak to us? Or Pat, would you prefer to do a lead-in on this?
I would like to introduce to you Todd Brand, our new facilities and grounds manager, and he can tell you a little bit about why these particular changes are being requested.
Welcome, Todd, and I think, is this the first time you've addressed council?
First time, yes,
Alrighty.
definitely.
Welcome.
Welcome to here.
Thanks. I guess I can go through which rules they'd like to change.
Yeah.
I will tell you everything's supported by city staff and the cemetery board. First one is just cleaning up the office hours. Their office hours for the last 5 years have been Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9 to 3. So that's just a language change to bring us up to the current date. The next item, item 6, is for graveside funerals. The cemetery board wanted us to take out some language that only allowed graveside services for a military funeral. So that'll be up to Director of Public Works discretion for graveside services now. So that's one rule change. Number 12, that was just adding burial containers to the language. There's urn materials, it's also stated in the rules and regulations. They wanted this to be primarily for outside burial containers. Just adding one word in there for you. Next section 22, corner markers is something that was never really done. The board felt it was unneeded in the language, so they struck out burial rights holders may replace these markers with granite corner posts, but such posts must be installed by the city's cemetery personnel. That they felt was not needed anymore. It just wasn't a practice that really happened. So that was cleaned up. The next one, memorial or marker and memorial size. To bring us up to current standards nowadays, they allowed it to go to 32 inches long, or 36 inches long and 26 inches high from the previous 32 inches long and 24 inches high. So just updating and letting you have a larger marker size. And that's pretty much the rules summarized for you.
All right, and then the rest of them are unchanged?
Right. Yep.
So it sounds like a series of timely updates.
Yep. Any other questions I can answer?
Comments, questions?
I have none. I want to thank the cemetery board and everybody who worked on it, and
Definitely.
getting everything cleaned up for us, so it's good.
Yeah, and I echo that. Thank you for everyone who worked on this and keep things up to date and user-friendly, or customer-friendly, however you care to put it. And welcome to council, Todd.
Thank you.
Yep, you did very well.
Thanks.
My first day too, so.
All right. We'll get through it together.
We're all getting used to our new rules here.
Definitely.
Okay, well, if there are no other questions, I believe we're ready to vote.
Cummins?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Fritz?
Yes.
Manetza?
Yes.
I'm sorry, who made the motion and seconded on that? Do you remember?
I'll make a motion. I
thought
think
we-
I did.
Okay.
I thought we did that.
I thought we all did that.
Support it.
We are-
Okay. Well, I apologize if I got too far ahead of you on that one.
That's okay. All of a sudden, it's like, wait a second, we didn't have that
I
yet.
thought we had moved that one.
You might have, and maybe I just missed it.
All right, item F. Consideration by city council to approve the low bid and award the contract to Clifford Buck Construction of Muskegon, Michigan, the amount of $584,081 for community center renovation project with a 3% contingency amount of $17,522.43. Authorizing the Director of Public Works to issue a notice of award and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the contract once all required submittals are received and have been received and approved. Derek?
I'd like to make a motion.
Oh, you got me.
I'll support it.
Okay, motion by Fritz, support by Cummins.
I'll help you, Bob.
Thanks.
Good evening, Your Honor. City Council, Derek Gatis, Public Works Director. Well, I have an update for you. The Community Center Board met this evening, and they unanimously supported the full construction project. And they were very grateful for the council for wanting their input on that, and the needs of the community center are being addressed. If you have any other questions, there was one, the contingency portion, I'll mention that. Last couple of contracts, we have, building contracts, we haven't had any contingency funds, and Saluka Field is one of them I'm currently dealing with, and instead of coming back to you for additional funds, and I know we actually awarded additional funds, I was hoping to the council approve a small amount of contingency, just in case we get into something that we have some unknowns. The building was built back in the 60s. Record drawings weren't really practiced very well, and we just don't know what we're going to get into. So just if you would authorize me to have that, or have that in the budget, we'd have to come back for additional support for that. I don't ever plan on using it if I don't have to. So, but there are challenges when you build a building, and even a brand new building, there was some challenges with Saluka so far. So, but we've overcome those and get it done.
Questions?
No, I'm glad to hear that they supported the full renovation of it, because I think in every one of those things there was something wrong that we need to address. And so I was in favor of it the way it was the first time around, but I'm glad they had some input. I'm glad we waited. So I'm in full support of moving forward with it, and also with a contingency for you. I think that's a smart idea to do. As long as we have it there, we have the funds are available. We have lots of it there to come in. We have $900,000 coming in the next 2 years for it, so we'll be all set.
Great job, and I think, I agree, that contingency fund should be there for, like you said, you never know what you run into with these older buildings, so fully supportive of it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I agree with Mike's comments. I think the community center board actually moved their meeting up a week or something like that to weigh in on this. I'm glad they had a chance to take a look, and there's a unanimous approval there. This is part of what the millage was there for, and certainly the funds are there. And it looks like, pretty healthy balance will still be left, $900,000 for future work that needs to be done once this is done in a couple of years. So I'm in support of full approval here.
Yeah. And I want to thank the Community Center Board for taking the time to take another look and give us their affirmation of what they want, and I'm sure that they presented all the rationale as to why each of these elements is important to them. I was disturbed last time when we brought this up and we looked at the pricing, that we had budgeted $300,000, anticipated being approximately half the cost that it actually is going to be. Here, the budget is twice what we anticipated, and to some degree you could say, well, it is what it is, and the budget was an engineer's estimate as to what it should cost, and reality caught up with us. So I guess that's the bottom line way of looking at it. And also kind of question a little bit in my mind as to whether we're getting good value for our money if the price is twice what we anticipated. And the community center, of course, is a public facility, is a public amenity, is something that we need to maintain, upgrade, make user-friendly, make available to be used by the public, either for rental purposes or public services or public uses. And so, in general, I'm in favor of certainly fixing things that are broken, things that are worn out, and I'm in favor of updating the building so it is a better building to use. And I've been skeptical from the beginning about boxing in the entrance, whether or not that's really needed or not needed. But the community center board, I tend to defer to what they feel their needs are. I'm left with my reservations about the price being twice what we thought and whether we should just spend the money because we have the money. I'll support this based on the idea that the needs have been analyzed and affirmed by the community center board as well as by staff. And I agree that the 3% contingency makes sense, although my suspicion is that if we needed a 4% or a 5% contingency because we unearthed some old skeletons in the basement, we would probably spend that money as well. So it's kind of a formality, but yes, I'm always in favor of setting aside some kind of contingency so that you don't have to come here to approve every nut and bolt that ran over. So
Appreciate that.
I guess those are my thoughts. I am concerned when we set aside budgeted amounts and say, well, we're just going to do it. In this case, I think that's exactly what we'll do. We should always be asking ourselves whether we're getting good value for our investment and whether we're satisfying actual needs or things that we would like to have, which we might be able to live without. I do tend to agree with comments made by other council members and by staff that you won't get it cheaper later. So if these are the things we actually need to do and we can afford to do them, we won't do ourselves a favor by waiting 2 or 3 years. So I guess that would be my feeling. If you have something to add to that, go ahead.
Yeah, one thing, is we realize in this process in the last, 24, 36 months since I've been here is the economy, especially in the construction trades, has just changed so quickly. So with our engineer of record, Ab Marsh, we've set up some different policies to get updated engineer's estimates right before we go out to bid, like at a 90% completion of the plans. Let's see what those numbers are. So that, realize this number was budgeted two years ago. We say, yep, we got the money, this is what we budgeted. And so we really never went back through and said, well, what does it cost today? Was it, a year later or today or right before we go out to bids, that was another byproduct of that same dynamic was on North Shore Drive. So again, yeah, maybe getting a more realistic engineer's estimate prior to bidding than relying on our 2-year-old data, which, historically I've had good, relatively good luck with that, those engineers' estimates being a year or two old, and still coming within 5 or 10% of those. But this one, not in the current economy, so.
We found that out in North Shore with Sluka here.
Yep.
Even down at the Riverwatch project. All these things we're finding that no contractors are hungry, nobody needs our work, so we're kind of in a market where we can't quite win.
No.
And whether that would get corrected in a reasonable amount of time as the economy changes, who knows? So, yes, if you could at least try to make sure we have current estimates so that we're not shocked or surprised.
Yep.
And that we can make that value judgment. I think ultimately it comes down to us to make a value judgment on whether this is the right amount of money to invest in this project or in this facility.
Yep.
So good information is always welcome.
Yeah, so I'll have that on our next project, our major project to come forward to you is Fulton Street. That is up a couple $100,000 since our first estimate. So,
well, thanks for the warning.
Sorry.
Ripped the Band-Aid off there, didn't we?
But
we'll try and
not
keep on
shocked,
top of
but
that
thanks
one.
for the warning. Okay. Anything else from anyone? Call the roll.
Scott?
Yes.
Fritz?
Yes.
Cummins?
Yes.
Manetza?
Yes. All right, unfinished business. This one has been lingering for us a bit. Consideration by the City Council for resolution to waive payment of an invoice dated June 6th, 2019, in the amount of $41,994.72 for services related to the care and maintenance of Duncan Park between July 1st, 2015 and May 31st, 2019, to fund the care and maintenance of Duncan Park as determined by the Duncan Park Commission in an amount not to exceed $10,000 for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2020. Now, this was postponed from our previous meeting, actually the previous two meetings. I don't believe we need a motion to take this back up.
No, it wasn't placed on the table.
Yeah, because, so this just automatically comes back on our agenda at this point to continue discussion where we left off. I see Mr. Cotner has come to the podium, so if you would like to address us.
Excuse me, we need a motion and second first.
What?
We need a motion and second.
Didn't I just have that conversation with you?
We do need a motion.
Pick it up off the table.
We need a motion and second to, not to remove it from the table, but to go ahead with this. I'm sorry, I misunderstood what you asked me.
Because my question was, since this was moved and seconded and postponed, do we need a motion to take it back up?
Yes.
Okay, because that was the question I just asked you, and you said
No,
no.
I misunderstood what you were asking.
Okay,
so.
then let's have a
Okay.
motion and a second.
So moved.
I'll support it for discussion purposes.
All right. And I will be getting out my Robert's Rules book and checking you on this one.
You wrote them.
Well, you wrote it, eh?
Yeah, my rules. All right, so now we're back in business. So, Roger.
Thank you, Mayor Manetza, City Council. My name is Roger Cotner. I'm president of the Duncan Park Commission. Several weeks ago, we asked the council to consider waiving an invoice that the city rendered to us for services that covered the period of October 1, 2014 through May 31, 2019. That's 1,703 days, or a little bit more than 4.5 years. I've been here twice before, and I've made the case for the waiver of the invoice, and I still believe it's appropriate to waive the invoice. Duncan Park, of course, is a city park. The invoice that was tendered to the commission was for services to take care of that city park. It covered over 4.5 years, and that averages about $25.56 a day. It's not a lot, but when you look at it in the aggregate, it is a lot. It's $42,000. The council in the past have referenced a Duncan Park Fund at the Grand Haven Area Community Foundation as a resource for us to pay this invoice. And when I say us, I mean the commission. And there are funds available at the Duncan Park Fund for the care, maintenance, improvement, emergencies, if you will, to address the needs of Duncan Park. That fund was not established by Mrs. Duncan when she made this very generous gift to the city over 100 years ago. Instead, that fund was generated in 1994, rather modest at first. I believe I related certainly to council, and I believe Mr. Cummins was in the audience at the time. I don't want to rehash too much here, but that fund was pretty modest when it first started. I can remember Paul Johnson inviting neighbors over to his home and asking us to donate, because essentially Duncan Park is our front yard or backyard or side yard, depending where you live around the park. And of course, it's a beautiful resource for the citizens of the city of Grand Haven. My check was a bit modest because I was just moving into a new home and had some unexpected expenses, of course, as everyone does. But there were probably 20 to 25 people at this gathering at Paul Johnson's home. And as I understand it, there was a relatively modest amount raised by that endeavor, certainly under 5 digits. And you know, as the it became known that the Duncan Park Fund was there at the Community Foundation. People who have enjoyed the use of the park have provided for donations, if you will, either during their lives or through their estates, and the Duncan Park Fund has grown. My concern as a member of the Duncan Park Commission is that, yes, there is that fund there, but I see that as a fund that deals with emergencies and more urgent matters than a budgetary matter such as is before the council. I see that fund as providing for treatment of the hemlock woolly adelgid that we approved in the amount of $16,500 earlier this year to make sure that that pest did not become pervasive in the park. We found 4 trees that were infected by the hemlock woolly adelgid, and we had expert information before us that said if we don't treat these trees, it's going to get worse. And I believe City Council is well aware of the problems in Mulligan's Hollow with hemlock woolly adelgid. We didn't want a Mulligan's Hollow in Duncan Park, so we appropriated the funds and we paid for the treatment to the extent of $16,500 through the Duncan Park Fund. But I don't see that fund as an appropriate care and operations, if you will, for the park. It has served that function in the past. I don't think it's appropriate that the city touts the park as a city park, and it's a beautiful city park, 40 acres. There aren't many cities that have a contiguous, mature hardwood forest in the middle of the city that's that extent and left in more or less in its natural state. And I'm here to ask the City Council to waive the $42,000 invoice, and to the extent Council is so inclined, to give us a budget of $10,000 to take care of the park. That's about what the average is over the course of the past 4.5 years. I also recognize that we're not in budget time, and budget time is a particularly painful time for City Council and staff, I'm sure, but at the same time, we're not timely in asking for that budget, and I understand and respect that. I would also like to make a note. I'm not sure that the juxtaposition is on Council's mind. However, I was present in the audience tonight when Council waived a $1,300 fee for the Kiwanis use of the depot for 11 days. I think that is absolutely appropriate for Council to do that. Kiwanis is doing a great service for many people. But I would point out to Council that that averages out to $118 a day, and it's for 11 days. What we're asking for is waiver of $25.56 a day over the course of the past 4.5 years, or nearly 1,650 days. I don't have anything further unless Council wants to ask questions or ask for clarification. I've been over a lot of this before, and I don't want to be redundant, but at the same time, I want to be available for questions if the Council requires it.
Thank you, Roger. And yes, this is our third go-around hearing this information, but it's a fairly complex case, so at least from our perspective, it's fairly complex. So appreciate the input. I guess at this point, I would ask for council discussion.
Pat, I got a question for Pat. Did they not vote to accept the bill itself, the board itself at one time?
At an earlier meeting this spring, there was a vote to pay $25,000 of a approximate $32,000 portion of this invoice, yes.
Okay. And also, if you look at the trust, the fund, shall I say, it says for operations and maintenance is what it's for. I'm not in favor of waiving the complete amount. I mean, all of that. I think they need to be billed for what was done, seeing that they voted on it and said they were gonna pay it. And then they said they weren't gonna pay it, then they voted again, and then I have no idea what their stance and why we need to waive it when they said they were gonna pay for it in the first place. The donations and everything that goes into that fund is for the operations and maintenance of it. And to add it to our budget now is the wrong time for us. I think budgetary time is coming up. We can reappropriate the time for it and take a look at it and make adjustments as a council, and we have a full council.
Excuse me. Ryan?
I guess along that line, certainly was, the minutes are clear, there was an approval of the $25,000 of, at the time, it was a balance of $31,452, and then it was approved in March, and then again in April for those funds that actually come from the Duncan Park Fund that was at the Community Foundation. The minutes aren't clear as far as what the thinking and rationale was related to that decision, and I've seen there was some email correspondence between you and staff, where you had some questions about whether or not snow removal was included in that, and then kind of what maybe the breakdown was for how those numbers were arrived at. But what was the board's rationale and thinking, behind approving $25,000 towards a $31,452 bill?
I appreciate the opportunity to clarify this because I don't think that for whatever reason our minutes and the emails present a clear picture of exactly what happened. As I recall, we received an invoice for about $32,000 in March of 2019. We had some discussion about it. We didn't have a specific motion to approve anything as far as that goes, according to my recollection. Minutes may prove me wrong, but I'm just speaking off the top of my head. But we did have a motion on the agenda for our April meeting. And the motion after our discussion at the March meeting specified $25,000 based upon what I gleaned was a consensus on our commission, that we'll pay a significant part of it, but we felt that some of the services that were included in that $32,000 invoice were services more appropriately billed to other parts of the city. Specifically, there's a lift station right inside the park entrance, and I understood that there was significant amounts of snow plowing expenses associated with keeping that lift station open for the city to service. But the bottom line is that the commission was of a mind to approve that $25,000 of the $32,000 in March, or I'm sorry, in April. Sometime prior to April, there had been presented to the Grand Haven Area Community Foundation an invoice for about $7,000. Commission didn't know about that presentation at all, and frankly, I didn't learn about it until I met with Mr. McGinnis and Hadley Strang of the Community Foundation. I believe it was in May. Mm-hmm. And at that time, I learned that not only was a $7,000 payment made to the city without the commission's even knowing about it, let alone approval, but in addition, as soon as the agenda was issued for our April meeting, the city went to the Community Foundation and asked to get a check cut for that $25,000 too. And this is before the commission had even acted. So it's a little bit, it may look in the minutes that the commission was not of one mind and kind of here and there, but the commission was quite upset that the $7,000 and the $25,000 had been paid to the city without its specific action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the 2016 payment. It was $7,952.61. There was an earlier invoice in 2016 that was paid, and so from your standpoint, the commission was unaware that that payment had already been made in 2016. And from your standpoint, that at least in, I believe it was in January, that there was a presentation by you, Pat, to the commission, or to the board, and about the charges of the, that 31,452. Then there was a vote, at least from reading the minutes, there was a vote on it in March, and then there was a second vote on it actually in April. But you have something to add to that?
Yeah, it was my understanding the board was fully aware of the earlier $8,000 charge in 2016. It is true that that was just done in the course of business, because initially Mr. Cotner and I had a discussion, and it was understood and agreed that we would provide services and they would pay for it out of that fund. And my understanding was the board was fully aware of that. I wasn't really aware, people being upset is a little subjective, I think. I don't know if that's true or not. But the fact of the matter is that there was a $8,000 approximate bill paid in 2016, and then an approval of a $25,000 bill in March of this year, which then, after the board voted on it, Finance Department contacted the Community Foundation, said go ahead and send the $25,000 down, which they did. And then subsequently, Mr. Cotner approached the city and said, why don't you send us back the $8,000, send us back the $25,000, which we transferred from city funds to the fund at the Community Foundation, with the assumption that they just wanted to vote on it as a complete package. So then we just reissued the invoice, expecting that they would live up to what had earlier been discussed, which was we would run a tab and they would pay for the services they received. So that's where we're at. It's just a typical debt that's due to the city that was discussed, agreed on, and now you're being asked to waive it.
Scott, certainly the board was at least aware that there was this ongoing tab that was being kept related to, the maintenance that was being done out there. Is that fair to say?
We were aware the maintenance was being done by the city. Prior to the city doing the maintenance, we had a groundskeeper, if you will. He was an independent contractor. At some point, we decided that it might behoove us to have the city take care of the city's park. And we were paying.
When were those discussions, or when did those decisions take place?
I believe it was in 2014 when we transitioned to the city to provide services. And we paid for city services for a certain period of time. I believe it was from about April of 2014 until October of 2014. In October, the Community Foundation said, we're not going to allow you to access that fund anymore, at least for the time being. That access has since been restored, and this is what the city is seeking payment for those services rendered between October 14 and May of 19.
That's what's...
Are you done?
I'm not done.
I was just going to see if Pat wants to interject on that, because there's reasons why.
Yeah, the decision by the Community Foundation to ask the city to intervene as kind of a intermediary between the commission and the foundation predated any involvement of the new Duncan Park Commission. That was a decision made well before any of this began. There was just a desire by the Community Foundation to have an improved paper trail and kind of a double verification put in place. So everybody was on board with that and remains on board with that the bills get paid by the city and then we request reimbursement from the Community Foundation was the way it was intended to work. But then at that point, in the bill, according to what I've got, was from earlier than October of 14, but that's probably immaterial. Mr. DeHare did leave. He was a caretaker, did a great job for many years, and it was decided to go a different direction, and the city would take care of the things that Mr. DeHare had previously been taking care of, and the tab began to grow at that point. Previously, and going through the old checkbook of what the commission maintained, It was around $10,000 a year is what would be spent on the operation and maintenance of the park. So the, $40,000 over 4 years is more or less in keeping with historical expectations, and I think where we're at now for the current year, I think we're tracking for 2019-20, just under $3,000 right now, and we're just, into November, so it's a pretty light year so far, but there's springtime, there's often a lot of work, a lot of cleanup and things down there.
I'd like to also, I don't know if you're up to speed on the Duncan Park and the lawsuits that proceeded. I don't know if you're on that, Ryan, are you caught up on all that?
What portion?
The lawsuits that occurred before. They had a caretaker out there taking care of the woods and that, and then all of a sudden we had a lawsuit, and he was being sued along with the Duncan Park Commission was being sued also. So that's when the city took over the maintenance, because it was much better than having a private contractor. It wasn't that they decided to do it, it was basically the lawsuits provoked us into moving forward on it. So
I don't necessarily agree with Mr. Fritz's timing argument. I was in place, I believe it was in 2013 as a commissioner. And Mr. DeHare worked for us for nearly a year during that period of time. It wasn't so much a question of the lawsuits, but rather it was a question of what the commission wanted to do going forward.
And I think that's what's, there's so many parts to this whole thing. And I've tried to get up to speed as much as I can. I mean, I've reviewed a number of items on this. I've looked at the original deed. Thank you to the mayor for providing me with a lot of the backstory documents here so I can get myself up to speed.
I gave you what I had.
You did, yeah, at least what you had. I read the 1994 ordinance language, the 2016 ordinance, the fund agreement with the community foundation, some of the email correspondence that's out there, some of the Duncan Park Commission meeting minutes, the spreadsheets breaking down the cost, the packet memos. I mean, there's pieces all over the place with this. So, I mean, certainly the city is the trustee right now. There's a court order that was put into place. We have an ordinance in place that we're the trustee. According to the original deed, the trustee is to keep the park in a neat and trim condition, and that means, at the means that our command allows. And certainly the original deed is quite clear that the city shall, or the council shall provide means for the care and improvement of the park. It doesn't say all the means or the only means, but at least some means. And it is an important park, you're right, to our community and the citizens of Grand Haven. It was a great gift from Mrs. Duncan, and it's important to help support the park and make sure we do what's required to keep us also, I think, in good legal standing as well on this as we go forward. The truth of the matter is this ordinance that we've had in place and has been in place for a number of years really hasn't been followed by either party. And so here we are. If we would maybe followed some of this budgeting processes that we've had in place, maybe we wouldn't quite be here with some of these discussions. I think the board was quite clear in being willing to accept nearly 80% of the costs that had been accrued, at least as of January. That $31,452 number. There was an agreement to pay at least $25,000 of that. There was a prior payment for at least $7,952.61. So, I guess the way that I, at this point see it, I'm back and forth between either waiving $9,042.11, which is consistent with the vote that you had in place, as well as the 2016 invoice being paid, or waiving $16,994.72, which would be just a straight up $25,000 that the board, at least with the knowledge that they had at the time, agreed to pay. But granted, that was based on a $31,452 bill. Certainly going forward, we need this, budget requests and the budget process, because we don't want to run into this again. So we want to make sure that we're appropriating the right funds, and that we're doing what we need to do as a trustee to provide for the care and maintenance of the park, and meet those responsibilities that are in the original deed. I would say, the means provided, I don't know if, we'll end up handing over a certain amount of cash, or it'd be in-kind services. All those things would have to be worked out, I think, through a normal budget process. But I guess that's where I'm at. I'm kind of between those two numbers.
All right, Denny?
Okay. I guess, I'd actually like to postpone this until we get a full council, like Mike was saying.
I
You don't wanna do
didn't,
that?
I didn't
That's
say,
how you
I
say
did not,
that?
I did not say postpone.
Okay, all right.
I do not want to postpone, I want to
Okay,
move forward.
all
on
right,
this.
okay, I misunderstood you, I'm sorry, okay, all right.
This needs to be resolved, and we can resolve it
Yes,
tonight.
okay, we're gonna resolve it tonight, all right,
I
okay.
think setting
all
for
right.
budget is what I said. We need a full council when we do budget, so.
Danny, what are you thinking?
Okay. I don't think we're gonna have enough votes here to waive, to waive the $16,994. So I'm gonna make a motion that we, pay the we bill the Duncan Woods Board the $25,000 and the $7,952, and we waive the $9,042. And with that, I would want to make it clear that from at least this fiscal year, that we're going to provide the snow plowing and we're going to provide the trash pickup. And that'll include this fiscal year. Then in budget time, we'll discuss this again at budget time. We'll have a full council then. We can bring this up and we can discuss it then.
Okay.
So I would propose right now that we bill the Duncan Woods Commission the $25,000 and the $7,952, and waive the $9,042, with the understanding that we are going to plow and we're going to understanding we're going to pick up the trash for this fiscal year.
At no charge.
And we'll discuss the rest of it when we go into budget time.
Well, this would be an amendment. The motion on the floor is to waive everything and provide 10 grand a year. So this would be an amendment to the motion here.
That's amendment. I propose that
They
amendment.
have to be
Yes.
seconded.
The last part that you said, I don't think he said 10,000 a year. He
No.
just said
So I think what the motion should say is that we would waive 9,000
For $9,042.
and
agree to provide plowing and at least trash removal at no cost.
This fiscal year.
This fiscal year.
Yeah, that's,
And then we'll discuss the rest of it at budget time.
see, this is kind of a time-bound thing. This goes from the fall of 2014 until basically the end of the last fiscal year.
Correct.
Because we're not counting June, because the actual bill was through the end of May. And if we say forget June, we just call it the end of the last fiscal year. So what's been presented to us in this motion that's before us and the request before us was basically up through the end of last year. And how we deal with the issue going forward, we need to follow the ordinance. The ordinance says that the Duncan Park Board Commission will submit a budget for council's consideration. We may adopt some or all of it, or none of it, but that would be the process. That's the process that's been lacking for the past few years, and for a variety of good reasons it's been lacking. But going forward, this fiscal year and next, we need to get our process in order, so that this doesn't come back, that we have done the things we're supposed to do, the Duncan Park Commission is doing the things they're supposed to do. And so I think that the amendment that Denny is offering should be focused on what we're going to waive from this bill. And then the rest of it, I think we'll just let go and say we're not going to deal with the $10,000 per year, but we'll deal with it as a budgetary matter. And I like what Denny has said about, for this year, we're going to provide certain basic services. So if you want to roll those into the amendment, fine.
I would like to
So
throw in an
so
amendment,
that
yes.
we're at a place where we can start with our budgetary process in the spring.
Based on how for this fiscal year and the way I'm in support of the amendment. Or second the amendment.
So, yes, sir.
I would just like to clarify, I understand everything that's been laid out, except for the period between May 31st, which is when that invoice went out, and then June 30th of last fiscal year, 2019. Would you include that we waive any fees that would have been incurred during that month? Because that
That's part
just
of the
complicates things.
I'll make that part of the motion.
So we
yes.
room that too.
That
so-
last month of the last fiscal year, we're going to just say there were no costs to Duncan Park Commission for those. It's not been invoiced, it's not been spelled out to anybody how many dollars that is, and it's not enough money to really spend much time on.
And for current fiscal year, this winter and next spring, we dump all trash and plow snow as part of the city's contribution to the park.
This fiscal year.
Okay, understood.
So, I mean, there's an amendment that's been made and seconded. I'd like to vote on that, but I still have comments to make on this issue. So let me make my comments before we vote on the amendment. So this is a long-running saga, and it starts with the bequest by Mrs. Duncan to provide this land for a park. The bequest was made to the people of Grand Haven on behalf of 3 trustees who were named at the time, but at the same time there were various conditions, one of them being that the Common Council at the time, the City Council, would provide means to support the park for maintenance and for improvements, that the Duncan Park Commission would be responsible for administering the park, for determining what services were needed, what was to be done, how funds were to be spent. And it says in the deed, means would be supplied by the city, but the means to get everything done would be taken care of by the commissioners. And so I think that there's some deliberate choices of words that were in that document, which says that the city has some options on what we would do, but we have an obligation. So the city clearly accepted an obligation to provide for something for this park. But it also said in the companion ordinance from 1913, which was readopted in 1994 and reconfigured in 2013 and again in 2016, that funds from the city would not be spent unless they were appropriated by the city council. And so the city council has a role in determining the checkbook here, how much money from the city's funds would go into the park, and that the balance of that would be either not done by the Duncan Park Commission or from other funds. In 1994, a fund was set up by private citizens to support the park. I can only infer from what little I know about it, because I wasn't involved in city affairs at the time, that was a very austere time in the city's finances, that basically things like Duncan Park were not being taken care of. I don't know prior to that what the city put in or failed to put in, but concerned citizens set up a fund to provide for maintenance of the park. And so taking that together with the fact the city has an obligation to do something, but not everything, there is a resource, which is at the community fund for the purpose of the park, that the Duncan Park Commission can request money from. And so that would provide the balance of whatever the Duncan Park Commission determines that should be done in that park. There are certain things that we do with all parks. And what we've been doing for the past 4.5 years are the things we do in all parks, regardless of whether the Duncan Park Commission wanted them done or not. So we've just been doing them. And the result is a $41,994 bill, which was due and payable last May. So really the Duncan Park Commission needs to take charge of the park and determine what needs to be done. They need to submit budgetary requests to the council, which we can use some discretion determining what we're going to approve. It's not just another park. No other park here has a trust deed restricting how it's owned, operated, and who's responsible for what. So it's a very unique situation. And as Ryan said, there's a lot of pieces to this. And there's a lot of other stuff going on with various lawsuits and various things that have happened over the past 10 years. Basically, as long as I've been on council, this has been going on. So there's a lot of confusing pieces, but I think to boil it down to the simple stuff, the park was given to the people of Grand Haven, not to the city, and put in the charge of the Duncan Park Commission. There was an obligation that the city accepted to do something to support that park, and there was an ordinance put in place to provide a process to get there. And the Duncan Park Commission is supposed to take charge of the park and determine what needs to be done and to do what it can with the means at its disposal. So I think that kind of boils down where everything ought to be, and where we ought to get to from here is to set the process in place going forward that we're going to, and I know it happened last year too, because I saw the memo you sent. We're going to request budgetary feedback from the Duncan Park Commission, and then we will take that into consideration at budget time, and we will do certain things such as Danny proposes the snow plowing, the picking up the trash. Maybe there's some other things that are mutually agreeable, we would just do and pay for ourselves, but anything else would be out of the Duncan Park Fund. So I think that the numbers that Denny presented, they make sense to me. There was the $7,952.61 bill presented, and it was based on discussion early on with the new Duncan Park Commission that we're gonna run a tab, we're gonna bill you when we can. And we did, we collected, we returned it. Then there was another bill subsequent to that for 31,000 some odd dollars I didn't write down. And the Duncan Park Commission unanimously voted in March, on their March 16th meeting, to pay 25,000 of that. And at the time, staff acquiesced to that and said, well, it's better than a fight, so let's go ahead and accept the 25,000. And so what I'm saying is that that earlier amount and the 25,000 together is 32,952.61, which with the math that we have over here on Denny's paper, leaves us with a $9,042.11 that I would be willing as a council member to waive that and collect the rest and put the process in order. It is less of a waiver than Duncan Park Commission would like to see. It is more of a waiver than staff thinks is appropriate. But I think it's an amount which we can make sense of, given all the various responsibilities, the history of the park, the things that should have been done that weren't done. So this is where I think that this number makes sense. And I think the responsibility going forward is to look at our ordinance, look at the deed trust, do the things that we have committed as a city to do, and the things that Duncan Park Commission has committed as a commission to do, and move forward from here. So I'd like to get this done tonight. I'd like to settle this, whether we have made everybody happy, unhappy, or somewhere in between, but then we can move on. So based on that and the amendment that Denny made, that Ryan seconded, yes, sir.
I just want to make sure I make one thing clear. As we've been talking, I think it is likely or that the Duncan Park Commission did not know of the 2016 draw when they voted on the $25,000 payment. You know, it's not clear to me that they did know about that. And Roger pointed out he thinks they didn't know about it. So it's not clear to me that they did. You know, there's probably no reason they would have because it was just in the course of business. I believe finance just issued an invoice for a number of charges that came to their attention. So, you know, I don't know if that makes a difference in your attitude or not, but I wanted to make sure that was clear.
But these were for two distinct time periods.
Yes.
So the $7,952.61, which I asked you about earlier, was from the fall of 2014 to some later period.
Yeah, I believe they overlapped. There were some things that may have been missed, but I know that there was considerable time and effort spent by Mr. Kotner and Jim Bonamy going over that detail.
So do you believe that the $7,952 and the 25,000 that was approved are double countings of some dollars?
No, and no, there was no duplication.
Okay, well, that's what I was trying to find out from you when I said they're distinct time periods.
Yeah, no duplication. They were for separate amounts. There was some speculation about that, but finance got deep into the details and established there was not any duplication.
But based on the notion that we're running a tab, this was the tab. It wasn't
Yes.
this plus this minus something else. Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Well, I'd like to vote on this amendment. Please call the roll.
Fritz?
Yes.
Cummins?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Manetza?
Yes. If there's any more discussion before we vote on the waiver itself. Anything?
We're voting on Denny's proposal now, right?
No, we just voted to amend the motion that's here.
Yep.
Now we're gonna vote on that motion that's amended.
On his amendment.
Yes.
That's what we're voting on.
We just voted on the amendment.
Just making sure.
We're gonna vote on the motion.
Okay, thank you. I thought you said you can work on a waiver. I'm not wavering.
This is a waiver. It's a waiver of $9,042.
Yeah.
Which was previously something before we amended it. So now we're voting on on the amended motion. Any other questions? Please call the roll.
Fritz? Sorry.
You do
Fritz?
me again?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Oh, that's on the same sheet. Okay, I'll start with Cummins this time.
I saw
Cummins?
Yes. Rotation.
Scott?
Yes.
Fritz,
Yes.
Manetza.
Yes. So the effect of this motion is that we are waiving $9,042, and we're taking care of certain things for this year, and next budget time, we'll see you. All right. That concludes our unfinished business. So I believe we're up to report by city council. Who'd like to go first? Anybody?
I can start.
Okay.
Just a new guy on the block here, just kind of looking at some ways we can maybe improve some public access things to meetings. Like it's great, we have the packets posted on the city's website, and it's out there. But, you know, we have over 3,500 current, Facebook followers. I don't know if we can post a link to our packet, when it goes out, at least on the website the weekend before, just to give an extra layer of availability to folks in the public to kind of see what's on the agenda and go through the packet. Along those lines, I think it's really neat that we have the radio that's here live for these meetings. We are streaming these live on YouTube, which is fantastic. But if you look at the number of subscribers that we have on YouTube, we have 114 subscribers. But our Facebook page has over 3,500 followers. And I know that the technology is available to live stream meetings through Facebook Live. It'll pop up a notification. I know the city of Muskegon does it. There's other municipalities that do it as well. I don't know what it would take to stream these live on Facebook as well, in addition to YouTube, or if it has to be one or the other. But I will kind of support this and some others up here on council, but I think that's something worth looking into, just to, again, provide a little bit more access, a little bit more availability. Some people might be more willing to watch it or see it on Facebook, and then they can comment as they go along as well if they choose to do that. But so that was my thoughts on that. The other piece I'm actually going to hold off on until the next meeting, because I want to do a little more research on it. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jenny?
Jenny?
Nothing.
I went to a few meetings, but the one that I really enjoyed the most and stood up and spoke at was at the Harbor Transit. And I know probably about, I'm guessing maybe 8 years ago or better, I think I've been trying to get our transportation to move so we can go to Muskegon, so we can go to Holland, we can go to Grand Rapids. We have a senior here, seniors, I say, would like to go to different places besides just the Tri-Cities area. And I encourage the Harbor Transit Board to move forward on that, to reach out and make it more acceptable for everybody to go places. I'd like to hop on a bus sometime. I'm always a designated driver when I go somewhere, so I like to be sometime, like to enjoy myself if I go to Grand Rapids. So if I could hop on a bus and go there and come back, it'd be so much easier for me to say, hey, I can enjoy myself a little bit more if I want to. And I was hoping that our Harbor Transit Board would get focused more on that. I haven't seen it happen in a few years, and I thought that was what they're supposed to do. They're a transportation thing, and I just asked them to move forward on it for us. And I also went to they just happened to be here to pay a bill, and they had the wastewater board was here, so I sat and listened to them and the different things, especially the fine for the water that we had, the sewer that went into the river, and how the state handles things, which is very difficult for us. They only see one vision. They have tunnel vision. They look like this, and they don't want to look at the bigger picture and listen to everybody. But that state, as we all know how they work, we've dealt with them for many years here. And that's about all I have to say. I just want to say, welcome aboard. And again, this is the first time for you here and that. And Bob, congratulations again. Since we're live and people are listening to us, I just want to say thank you for all the people that went out there and voted. It was very nice of you. I'd like to see a bigger percentage next time. Yeah, 30% is good. I mean, last time I ran for mayor, it was only like less than around 20%, so it wasn't much at all. So we did get a jump in people, but it's our civic duty to get out there and vote. It's one thing that you have a right to do and to voice your opinion. And if you don't like something and you don't vote, you really shouldn't be complaining. You should actually get out there and vote and voice your opinion, let people know. And that's what we have these meetings here for people to come in. If you want to, we have 2 times to come in here to voice your opinions and let us know. So just want to say that's about it.
Okay, well, thank you. Well, I've had an eventful week, and it's been interesting, and I think I'm coming up to speed here. So, a couple things that I did in this past week. I also attended this Harbor Transit Board meeting. In fact, I've been the council representative on the Harbor Transit Board since I took office on council. Then it was on the LAC, which was the local area council, which is more of a citizens advisory group. In 2012, Harbor Transit transitioned to become a regional authority. There was a millage election. Grand Haven Township came on board, and Ferrysburg came on board, and City of Grand Haven. The 4 of those communities formed this regional authority, and then in 2016 or 17, 2016 was it?
I believe it.
You're nodding your head. I must have it close. The Harbor Transit also brought on board Spring Lake Township. So Spring Lake Township voted, passed millage, and they also contribute. So there's a governing board of 11 individuals, 2 from each of the 5 municipalities, because they include Spring Lake Village, and 1 citizen, which is Pete Lamore, I believe, is that 11th person. So this is now a regional authority, and it was a department of the city, and it was kept under the administrative care of the city for all of these years that it's been a regional authority. And that's been a pretty efficient way to do things, because the city has all the staff, all the administrative structure, the ability to write paychecks, have HR department negotiate, whether it's negotiating contracts or just determining benefits in this case. There's a lot of things the city does as an administrator, and of course we charge them for that. We spread that cost the same as if we're a department of the city. One of the things that's going on with the Harbor Transit Board at this point in time is that they're looking at internalizing more of those functions, doing more of their own finance work, doing more of their own administering of grants, applications for grants. Just a lot of different things they're trying to do themselves. They've changed their fiscal year to match MDOT's fiscal year. Some of these things make perfect sense. Some of them were a little mystified as to why they want to do these things when they're not doing, as Mr. Fritz says, figuring out how to get into Muskegon instead of figuring out how to stay in the areas that we're in. So there's some debate going on the board as to how they're going to be administered in the future, how much they're going to take in themselves. And a finance committee was formed at that meeting that we had to look into the cost effectiveness. One of the things that I think this is as good a time as any to bring it up, is that there was a notion on the part of the Harbor Transit Board that there would be the possibility of contracting certain services with the city and doing certain things on their own, and essentially treating it as a cafeteria plan of service. And from the city's perspective, that doesn't really compensate the city for the administrative effort we do or the way we staffed up to do those things. And some of the benefits they receive from the city, they want to keep receiving while taking some of their business elsewhere. So I believe I'm summarizing this very briefly but fairly accurately, that the city would like to continue to provide administrative support for Harbor Transit. Harbor Transit would like to piece it out, contract what makes sense, and do the best deal they can for Harbor Transit, as they are a separate regional entity. So I think that at some point we're going to be asked as a council whether or not we're willing to contract out pieces of our work and let other things go, or make it an all or nothing plan. Say we either do this service for you or we don't, in which case I think the possibility would be far less attractive to Harbor Transit. So this is kind of a work in progress. There was a finance committee that's meeting. I've kind of anticipated where it's going to go with them, but this was the gist of the meeting that we were at. It was a public meeting, and so there was members of the public there who also heard the same conversation. This has been cooking for a few months. So it was an interesting, lengthy meeting, and some of the changes that are coming to Harbor Transit may or may not be in the best interest of the city or the public, but we'll see where it goes from there. Certainly, Harbor Transit is a regional authority and has the ability and the right to self-determine many aspects of their operation. And so we have to be respectful of that. We just also have to be concerned about how the city will operate and interact with this. So that may come to us at a future time. It isn't quite there yet. So the other thing I did was I went to a diversity forum on Friday. The county hosted a diversity forum in Holland at the Civic Center. I hadn't been in the Civic Center in about 35 years, so it was interesting to go back in there. I got my high school diploma on the stage in that building. That was a long time ago. But the diversity forum was great. It was a series of speakers and workshops and breakout sessions. Mostly it was recognition of implicit biases that people have it both as individuals and as employers, and how to recognize these things, how to deal with them and treat people fairly and correctly. It was several sessions, and it was very good. One of the things that we did see was that our own Raina Masco, who's on our Human Relations Commission, was given the Equity Award, which was a nice award that was a county award, I believe, Pat? Yeah, this Equity Award came from the County Diversity Committee.
Yes. And
so that was awarded to Raina Masco, who was also instrumental in getting our fiesta this past summer going, and so that was a great honor for her. So I was glad to see that happen, and it was just a really interesting day, very educational, and it's one of those things that I'm glad I went. And I wish we could have had more people there. And aside from just various things I've been catching up on, that was pretty much my week. So, report by city manager. Anything left?
Just very, very quickly, we were well represented compared to the rest of the county. I think Northwest Ottawa County was very well represented at the Diversity and Inclusion Forum. You know, as they were commenting that they were very pleased. Our commissioner was strutting around there, pretty happy that he had as good a representation from Spring Lake and Grand Haven area, and it was very well attended overall. To Ryan's point about the Facebook stream, that's a great idea. We'll see if we can do Facebook Live. They're a little bit odd in this environment with political content, so we'll see what we can do. I mean, it is very likely free, you know, because it's free on YouTube, so why wouldn't it be content they would be interested in? I think everybody should be interested in watching this, so why wouldn't Facebook agree with me? So we'll check that out. But another thing that came up that is very easy with some of our officials, you know, some of the transition we're going through, people wanting to stay in touch. We're going to start an email blast, kind of like a constant contact concept, where every time we post the agenda, the link gets emailed out if you're on the list. And we'll keep that list current. I imagine we'll probably build it into a pretty big list. So every couple weeks when the agenda comes out, you know, you guys get it. But why shouldn't everybody else just get a quick email that makes it real easy for them just to click on the link and open the packet just to see what's out there and any more ideas like that, please keep them coming. That's good stuff. So I appreciate it, Peggy. That's all I got, Your Honor.
All right. Well, this is our second call to the audience. Anybody would care to address council? Same rules apply. Come to the podium, introduce yourself by name and address, and tell us what's on your mind. And seeing nobody rushing to the podium, I will adjourn this meeting.